The reason why I'm doing this is last Sunday night, Pastor challenged us. And he said, we're not quite there yet. We never will arrive, to be honest. But unless we upgrade our systems throughout every ministry, we will not be as effective as we possibly could be. So I began to think as I was, obviously preparing for this book and just to speak to you tonight. Once we all go home, you go home in your own little family, your own little group there. And if the family system isn't well joined together, isn't functioning properly, you can't expect it to come here to church and to be part of an overall system that's going to be extremely effective and influence in our community. So that's why it's very important for you to be together as a family, spend time with one another. Really, we can go ahead and put up the first slide. The title of the book I've been working on is called Knowledge Pay. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but it's helped my family grow tremendously, and I know it can help yours. Said we can't really expect our church to get to the level. We're starting to look at this larger church building. You walk inside of it, it's 28,000 square foot. I mean, it just goes and goes and goes and goes. It's a huge building. And when Pastor was preaching last week, I was like, yeah, we have a lot of work to do. But it starts with the family. It starts at home. And then once you get your family in order, then you're able to come here and really be part of the ministry. I mean, once your family's functioning, the kids want to be a part. You want to do more. You can give more because you understand the concept of how the family works and how to apply it inside the church family. Because if our individual families aren't doing well, and we all have work to do. Just because I wrote this book doesn't mean that I'm an expert on parenting. By far, I'm not. But I do have a quick video for you. It's from Nature Valley. You've probably seen their granola bars. Let's go ahead and play the video real quick.
When you were a kid, what did you do for fun?
So we go blueberry picking, for instance. That's so cute. But it was true.
We grew watermelons, plantains.
I found an old sign which was big enough for me to sit on and made a great toboggan. It was very slick, very fast.
I had a few fish in my basket, and I looked up on this bluff, and here's this black bear sitting there watching me. If he starts chasing me, I'm going to keep throwing the fish out of my basket until he's gorged and he won't bother me.
And what did you like to do for fun?
You go door to door, get a group of kids, and you play lots of games, hide and seek, just going out to the field and playing baseball.
And we built these massive forts, the kind that you can actually sit in and play in, with our friends. And it was just really wonderful.
So what do you like to do for fun?
Video games. Definitely.
I like to go on my phone.
Text. Some email.
My favorite thing to do in the world is definitely watching videos and playing video games. Those take up so much of my time.
3 hours or 3 to 4 hours a day. Same.
5 hours straight.
Just last week, I watched 23 episodes of a TV series in less than 4 days.
I forget. I'm in a house, I have parents, I have a sister, I have a dog, I just think I'm in the video game, I completely get lost. I would die if I don't have my tablet.
Whenever I feel upset, I'd play video games and I'd feel normal. It's really wonderful.
When your daughters grow up, your great-great-grandkids, what do you think will happen if this trend continues?
It's scary to think that they'll never have to leave the house.
Cindy grew up doing a lot of the things that I did and enjoyed. And I see what my grandsons are doing today, and it's mind-boggling.
By the time they have kids, it's going to be a really different environment.
I actually feel a little sad because I feel like he's missing out on what's out there in the beautiful world.
special connection with nature. I think it's innate in all children, but needs to be nurtured.
So the reason why I bring this video to your attention is that may not be your family, but if your family isn't focused on the right things, it very well could be. And what I want to talk about tonight is refocusing your energy. And a lot of it has to do with the parents, the children's obedience. If you'll turn your Bibles over to Ephesians chapter 6. And yes, we're talking a lot about the families tonight, but there will be several points in here that'll focus on the individual. Maybe you don't have kids yet, or maybe you're a teenager, or maybe you're looking for that special someone. We'll get into that in a little bit, but this applies to everybody. If anything, you're part of the church family, and you need to be a good example to the other families that are here. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1, Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. And ye fathers, provoke not your children unto wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. The lady at the end of the video, she brought up, yes, if you need a Bible, go ahead and raise your hand. The lady at the end of the video, she just realized that I'm really not nurturing. You saw the mom wiping her eyes. The grandfather, you can kind of tell when he kind of looked up right at that last moment, like, wow, what is going on here? And it happens every day to us. Because a lot of times we get so busy with the things that we want to do. Our children, our teenagers. Yes, I'm talking to you children, teenagers, pay attention. The discipline that you set now will transcend as an adult. The bad habits I had as a kid, I see them as an adult. Every adult in here will tell you that. They will. So what we see here in the video is a typical family. Concern, regret, sadness. We don't want this. We want excellence. I don't know about you, but I do. I can't expect my kids to be excellent if I'm not willing to do it myself. We want growth. We want achievement. We want. We desire it, but we don't take action. And that's really what a knowledge pay is about. It's not the solution, but it is a solution. It's worked very well in my family. Let me tell you a little bit how it started. And when we lived in Latvia, I was working at the embassy there. Brady was just a young boy, and I think around 6, maybe 5 years old. Yeah, I mean, he was young. And we were looking at ways to get him to read. Like, I want him to read. I didn't read at all when I was little. I didn't. And we figured out a way where we can reward him for reading. But I didn't want him to just stick with just reading. I wanted more. I wanted physical fitness. All these things. I wanted him to grow in every possible way. Then later on, as Sarah and Emily got older, we moved to Egypt, was our next duty station. And while there, I speak with another gentleman, and he was telling me what he does with his family. He's got an app. He's got all this. And I tried all that. And you can apply chores, and people like chores, and they like to say, hey, I give my kids chores. But that's just giving them responsibility, which is good, but it doesn't complete the circle. And what ends up happening most of the time whenever we give our kids chores? You're constantly reminding, hey, did you do that? Did you do that? Did you do that? Did you do that? So what I realized is I needed a system that was going to take the burden off of me. I'm working, doing all these other things. I want my children what in the Marines we call a fire and forget weapon. Meaning I give them the task, they go accomplish it, it's done. You don't have to worry about it. Imagine if that's your child. I've got a few attributes. They're actually on the back. We'll kind of get into them here in a little bit. So just kind of give you a little bit of instruction. We're going to start here on this front page where all the fill-in is, and then on the back, we'll kind of go through this in a little bit. I'm going to try to go quick because there's a lot to the book, but I want to make sure it's valuable, and we're doing this effectively as well. So if you, on the front page there, on the bottom right-hand side under point 4, imagine if this was your child or your children. They could follow a schedule on their own. Half of us adults can't follow a schedule on our own. How about if they could read their Bible and pray quietly in their room each morning when they wake up based off the schedule you've given them? How about completing responsibilities without being asked? That would be nice, wouldn't it? Desiring educational opportunities on their own. I like that. Increasing physical fitness levels and setting goals. Preparing for the mental challenges of the day. The world's going to throw so much at them. If you aren't preparing them mentally, you're really hurting them. You're really hurting them. How about if they're interested in seeking opportunities to earn income? I love many of the teenage boys, the young men here, they come and ask me, hey, Brother Kevin, you got any work? I love it. I tell them, you're not bothering me. Ask me, ask me, ask me. You're not bothering me. Because I want you to have that work ethic. I want to be an influencer. And that's what I say, if you don't have children in here, you can definitely be an influence. You can absolutely be an influence. Understanding the value of money and properly stewarding. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Let's go ahead and turn to the first slide. Your gift is waiting. Your gift is waiting. So that first fill-in is your gift. And you're probably wondering, like, a gift, your gift. What are you talking about, Brother Kevin? Well, most of the time as I started writing down all those things that I want for my children to be able to do without me having to tell them to do it, can my kids really do it? That's probably what some of you are asking. Can my kids really do that? They can. They can. And what they're really waiting on, that gift, they're a gift from God to you, right? They're a heritage of the Lord. Let's turn over to Psalms 127 real quick. Psalms 127. Verse number 3. Psalms 127, verse number 3. Says, lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. They're a gift to us, but ultimately they're his. Verse 4 says, as arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are the children of the youth. Speaking of, if you're not a mighty man, if you're not seeking to be a mighty man, you're setting up your children for failure. You're setting up your arrows for failure. Verse 5. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemy in the gate. They're mentally prepared. They're physically prepared. They're educationally prepared. And ultimately, they're spiritually prepared. And that's really the foundation of what Knowledge Pay is about. So God's given you a gift. That gift is waiting on you to do something about it. They don't understand the complexity of the world. As an adult, you understand you have to live in it. There's so many things that you could provide to your children and your grandchildren or to the children in this church. They are a gift. When I read these, I would think most people are like, where can I buy one of those kids, right? You know, can I trade mine in, get a new model, right? But they're a gift to you. They're for you to steward. For you to steward. The second point, structure is freedom. And so you may be thinking, well, especially teenagers and kids, they're like, oh, you give me more responsibility, then I can't play the games like I'd want to, or watch the movies like I want to. Or if I give you adult more responsibility, what happens? Oh, I can't do what I want to do. And realistically, it's all about what we want to do. while serving in the Marines, went to Japan several times. And I was in intel and focused on Korea quite a bit. Obviously, they're in the news, still a hot topic. What I learned about the North Koreans is that many of them, I mean, you got to think about the environment that they're in. A lot of them are in work camps, just constantly working. I mean, their whole lives are constantly being driven. They're told what to do all the time. Very little food to eat. I mean, just a miserable life. And of course, they hear about South Korea. If you look at the peninsula at night, the Korean peninsula, you look at it at night, satellite shot, it's completely dark except for around Pyongyang, which is the capital of North Korea. Seoul, all of South Korea, completely lit up. You can see freedom. So what do you think the North Koreans are thinking when they're hearing these stories like, what's going down in the South? I got to get down there. So there's some that will risk their lives just to make it across the border so they can experience that same freedom. As I started to study, it became interesting that not all of them would come back, but many of the defectors, if they were able to make it without dying, they would get to South Korea, they realize their whole life's been in this structure, in this tight little bubble. And over time, once they get to South Korea, they're like, what do I do? There's so many decisions to make. I've never had to make a decision before. And they realize, you think about the prodigal son. He's under the structure of his father. And then he goes out, and what does he do? He gets involved with the wrong people, starts doing the wrong thing, and he ends up being with the pigs. That's what happened to many of these defectors. They realize, surprisingly enough, it was better off for me to be in North Korea. And they go back. And you're wondering, and so it made me think, like, what structure and freedom, like, what's going on? There's this extreme structure, and I'm not saying that we should have a North Korean type structure in our home, obviously. But what I'm saying is that there's freedom through structure. If you go out and you go soul winning, and you knock on the doors, a lot of people will tell you, guess what? I don't really want to go to church because there's all these rules and, all that kind of stuff. You get that a lot. Because when you get here, you're preached the Word of God, and the Word of God is the structure which we should live by. It is the structure. But what also do we teach? Through Christ, what do we get? We get freedom. So through structure gives us freedom. Imagine if we don't have structure. I've given this illustration at Sunday school, but imagine you're driving down the road. You're driving down Greenfield, and you're coming up to one of the major intersections. You can pick whichever one you want. And as you're getting close, there's no signs. There's no marks in the road. There's nothing. You're coming up to the intersection. There's other cars. It's going to be what? Complete chaos. Because if there is no structure in your home, you will have chaos. And you wonder why these families are, they're looking, they're sad, they're just astonished at what's going on. They have no structure. So when you come to church, when you read the Bible, when you do the things at home, there has to be a structure in place, or there will be chaos. With that structure, that list, they'll fall in a schedule on their own. They're doing the things that you're asking. They're making decisions where they're seeking opportunities themselves. That sounds like freedom to me as a parent. I'm just being honest. Let's go to the next slide. So there's four elements. Daniel chapter 1, verse 4. I preached on it a few Sundays ago. And all the attributes of Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, skillful in all wisdom. They understood the science. They were able to stand in the king's palace. And as I started going through each of those attributes, as well as Joseph and several other characters inside the Bible, what I realized is that there's four fundamental elements that I think our structure should be built off of. And that's what I built our family structure off of. First of all, we have spiritual, and I call these fuels because there's a fire just waiting to be lit with inside your family. That gift that God's given you is just waiting for you to be the leader that you're supposed to be. Just waiting for you to give them the opportunity. I love opportunities. I don't know about you. I love opportunities. When I play board games like Monopoly or this board game Cashflow, and I get a chance and I land on the opportunity, I'm like, yes. I'm excited to see the blessings of what God can give. Obviously not through the game, but in a spiritual, from a spiritual standpoint. So spiritual fuel, setting it inside a schedule to read their Bible. What must we do, parents? Make sure that we're reading our Bible. Make sure we're doing the things that we're supposed to do. Make sure they see us praying. Make sure they hear us singing praises to the Lord. All the things that spiritual fuel can add to your home to make it run smoothly and run efficiently. We'll get into a little bit more of the details of those here in a little bit. Physical fuel. I know Pastor likes to work out. I like to work out and maintain a certain fitness for the Marines. If you're not doing it, parents, you're really setting them up for failure. And the reason why I say that is physical fitness is very unique. As we go through each of these fuels, they all tie into each other. They're not just individual where when I go and work out and I set goals. Children, do we set goals? Yes, we're supposed to set. When I set goals and I strive towards them and I accomplish them, there's a mental change that happens within. Like, wow, now I want to go to the next level. I want to go to the next level. So it impacts our mental fuel. Mental fuel is very interesting because standing up here in front of you can be not many would want to do it. But I want to encourage my kids to step out in faith a little bit and to sing. And to seeing Sarah play on the piano or Brady play the guitar. It's powerful. Because I know it's mentally developing them, spiritually developing them. It's preparing them for the challenges that no matter what, they can be successful because they have God on their side. Educational fuel, it's pretty obvious. We send our kids to school or we homeschool. Adults, we should be reading. We should be studying. We should be bettering ourselves. If our kids don't see us doing it, they're not going to do it either. They're not going to have a desire. What are they going to want to do? Binge watch TV. If we're binge watching TV, what are they going to do? The same exact thing. So in chapter 1 of the book, I call it the charge. The charge. So I'm going to charge you now.
Yeah, come on, charge us.
God has more for you than you realize. If we want our church to get to the next level, if we want our families to get to the next level, it's going to start internally with each and every one of us. It's got to start with you. We're going to face challenges. That's good. Because when you overcome, you're ready for the next challenge. You're ready for the next one. God wants so much more from us. So much more from us, parents. So much more. If our kids don't see it, we're letting them down. Set the example. There's 12 leadership traits, or 11 leadership principles, 14 leadership traits that the Marines taught. And two of them that always popped out at me are those two B and C there. Set the example and seek self-improvement. I think they kind of encompass all the other leadership traits and leadership principles. Because if I don't set the example, then I can't expect others to follow me. If I don't seek self-improvement, how am I going to be able to influence? If I don't read, if I don't study, if I don't pray, if I don't do all these things, if I don't push myself, nobody's going to want to follow. Set the example, seek self-improvement. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Understanding our roles. Roles is the fill in there. Yes, parent, grandparent, future parent. We all have roles. You have a role right now. And teens, children, you have a role in the functionality of the family. If you're leaving your clothes around children, teenagers, and expecting mom and dad to pick them up, you're wrong. It is your role to pick up after yourself. It is your role to be prepared to be the adult. Yes. Wave the hanky, Pastor. It is your role. Parents, it is not your role to pick up after your children. It goes both ways. It is not your role. We have to define what our roles are. I don't have all the time to go into the definition of our roles, but it is very important for us to set a strong standard, and we're about to get into a high standard here in just a moment. We got that big table that we're about to kind of jump into real quick. Let's go ahead and jump into that. All right. So I used to bring this up to the Marines a lot. Most of them, they'd like to go out, and they'd go to all the wrong places because they're 19, 20, they're, like you young gentlemen. And they're obviously looking for dates like we've been kind of proposing to and just kind of having fun with that. But when they would, hey, Gunny, I met this young lady last night. I'm like, oh, okay, tell me a little bit about her. Just kind of ask some of the basic questions. And typically they would always meet them at a bar or some, the standard place that you would think that young military would go to. And I begin to ask questions like, well, do you really want to meet a lady from that kind of place? I'm like, I don't know if you could. I really don't know if you could. But I'd ask him, okay, so tell me a little bit about her. And he would start, oh, she's pretty. She's got all these different attributes, right? And I'm like, okay, all right. I would typically grab the youngest Marine and, all right, go over to that whiteboard. And I would tell that young Marine, imagine that you have a daughter. And that's where these fill-ins come in. Future son-in-law, future daughter-in-law. Now I'd say, imagine you had a daughter, and she brings home a young man. Obviously, every young Marine's grabbing his shotgun, like all the dads do, like, whoa, who's this young guy? Now they're starting to perk up a little bit. They're like, hey, what's going on here? And I would ask them, if you could pick who he would be or what are the attributes of that young man that's going to date your daughter or that wants to marry your daughter, what would you want them to be? And so I left some few blanks as we're kind of talking, going through some of this. I'd like for you to just take a moment and start thinking of some of those things. What would you want your child's, so Pastor for Nolan, for example, what would you want his future wife to be? The attributes, pretty, educated, loves children, loves to serve the Lord. I mean, there's a lot of those. And as you really start to think about those and you start writing them down, you'll start to realize that, hey, I've got a very high standard for who we haven't even gotten into the lady side. I'd ask lady Marines like, hey, guess what? Imagine, because usually women are a lot tougher on this than men are. I would ask her, I'm like, so you have a son. What do you want his wife to be like one day? Because there's always that kind of weird, relationship going on, and they're even so much more strict. They set such a high standard. They write down all these things like, boom, oh no, there's no way that anybody's ever good enough for my kid. But what I realized is I would have them write down all these attributes, and I would tell them, you see all those attributes on the board? That's the example that you should be living. That's the example that you should be living. I want a lot for my daughter's future husbands. I expect a lot, but if they don't see that in me, how can they seek that out there? Right? They have to see it in me. Same for my son. if he is going to find the wife that God has for him, and the high standard that I would want for her to be, or that Megan would want her to be, he's got to see the example somewhere. He's got to see it somewhere. So we don't have a lot of time to fill this in, but I encourage you to take this home tonight and write that down. Really think about it, because that's you. You're setting a high standard for somebody else. High standards are for you, not for somebody else. High standards are for you, not for somebody else. If we are going to continue to grow as a church and to get better, it starts in the family. It starts in the individual. And then once the development and that growth continues to grow and grow and grow, it's going to be so powerful within inside this church. Imagine all the families in here functioning on all cylinders. And you have guests coming in like, whoa, what's going on here? A guest did that this morning. Have we arrived yet? No. They said, wow, I like this environment. I like this church family. It feels like a family. But I would say on the church level, are we all participating? Are we all doing our best? Are we giving our all? There's room for all of us to improve. So the high standards are for you. They're not for others. So I bring you this charge to help you understand, hey, things can go sour quickly. You don't want to wait till they're teenagers until, what did I do wrong? You start them early. You start them young. You start them as soon as you possibly can. But parents, it starts with us. God's given them as a gift to us. And if we're not focused in this area, our personal desires, our personal wants will slowly take us away. And sometimes they raise themselves. The wrong influences come in. Point 2. So this is where we get into the concept of what this is. So we understand that there is a need in today's society. We do have issues with children spending too much time on electronics, but that's not what it's really about. Kids, I'm not bashing playing video games or anything like that. I think it's enjoyable. And there's time for that. But if you are going to be successful, you've got to refocus your energy. And that's what this concept is really all about. It's refocusing your energy on spiritual fuel, the physical fuels, the mental fuels, and the educational fuels that are going to just give you a fire. And once it starts going, you're not going to want to stop it. That's what's going to happen in the church. If it starts with inside the family, it's going to grow, it's going to grow, it's going to grow, and boom, it's just going to burst right in here to the church. What's different about them? It's like getting saved and being able to tell people about Jesus. Like, hey, what's different about Brother Nathan, Brother Mike, Brother Josh, Brother Juan Carlos, Brother Atlee? What's different about them? They've got something going on. And I want a little piece of it. I want to learn about it. Teach me, teach me. So the concept, here's the steps. Commit to a start date. And you're thinking, well, you haven't even told me what it was. You're never going to start unless you commit to a start date. So just plan. You don't have to necessarily do this. But commit to changing your family is all I'm asking. And all I'm provoking you to do tonight. Commit to a day. If you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. So I'm asking you to just think about it. I want to sit down with my husband or wife or whatever your family situation is. I'm going to sit down with my children. Hey, we're going to start doing something different around here. We're going to make a difference in our family. Point 2 there. Create daily responsibilities. I want you to turn your paper over to the back. Create daily responsibilities. On the left-hand side, you'll see summer daily responsibilities and school year daily responsibilities. I'm introducing you to a little bit of, all this is a concept of my mind as well as what God's led me to do. But this is my family. You say, y'all really do all this? Don't worry about the times. Everything that's built up around the daily responsibilities are the physical, the spiritual, the mental, and the educational. Wake up in the morning, make my bed, pray. My children have to do that. Exercises, yes, they have to exercise, and sometimes I don't want to. But guess what? I have to set the example for my children. Breakfast and cleanup, yes, they have to clean up. We don't just leave our plates on the table. And I'm not telling you this. Do I still have to tell my kids to? Yes. They're children. Do you have to remind yourself? Yes. Do we have to come and hit the reset button ourselves? Yes. We're not perfect. Outside and fuel targets. We'll get into fuel targets here in a little bit. But outside just means go out and do something. This is a time for you to go do something. Lunch and cleanup. Music practice. Music is so powerful. If you're not encouraging your kids to learn an instrument, you're missing out on a huge blessing. Mental, physical, spiritual elements of it. Oh, it's so good. Much less the educational. It hits all four. It really hits all four of them. Try to find things within. So our daily responsibilities may not be something that you're interested in doing at home. That's why I say create daily responsibilities. You can use this as an example, but create yours. Do it. Figure out, how can I encourage my children to grow in these 4 different areas? So school year, daily responsibilities, summer, daily responsibilities. Have a plan. Aim at something. We'll get into a little bit more of the daily responsibilities here in a little bit. I got to keep moving. All right. Create a list. Go back one. Create a list of fuel targets. So if you look on the other side of the page there, fuel targets. These are all age appropriate. So the daily responsibility came up with when Brady was reading the books, and I would say, all right, for an easy book, you would get this much money, just a very small amount. And you're like, I know some of you are thinking, well, I don't have budget, I don't have money in the budget to do all this extra stuff. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. I've got a unique way that's going to help you in so many areas. So you see, I encourage them to do these things. If you play chess and checkers instead of, say, going outside and playing, which is a good thing too, but if you do these things, I'm happy to pay you. It's just 10 cents. But it's just a little bit of the start. Learning to type, read, 10 cents every 20 minutes. You're like, how do you keep track of that? We'll get into that here in a minute. Music, 15 minutes. So this is outside of their daily responsibility. They are required no matter what to do the daily responsibilities. Let me add that in there. They are required to do the daily responsibilities. There's a bunch of, memorize 5 topical verses. That's good stuff to learn. I'm horrible at that. I challenged them to memorize Proverbs chapter 1. I started doing that. So I want them to say the whole thing without stopping. I'll give them $1 per verse. It's a challenge. But it's a goal that several of them have set. 10 pull-ups, hard educational book. There's so many things that you could do inside your house. So you create your own. Next slide. Identify a visual tracking system. So as I alluded to earlier, there's many different ways that you could do it. What we set up are these little, like this is E for Emily. And we created fun little popsicle sticks, so it's not very expensive. And throughout the day, once they create all their daily responsibilities, they get to grab a DR. Mind you, there's rules to this system. But they grab a DR, and there's action involved. They see the fruits of their labor. We put it in a visible location. So throughout the day, it's right there in our kitchen if you come over and you can see it. There's jars in there. So it not only reminds me of, hey, how are the kids doing? Are they accomplishing things? I'm always asking them, hey, when I leave for work, hey, we're going to accomplish great things today. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Don't just sit around. We're encouraging them. We're trying to do these things. That's why we built the daily responsibilities to put that in place. So you don't necessarily have to do this. You can use an app. There's all different kinds, but this is a very inexpensive way you can get the jars. This a dollar store for popsicle sticks. And what we did was we kind of classified them by number. And so whenever the kids accomplish something, they come in, boom. Hey, Dad, guess what I did? I'm like, oh, what'd you do this? What was this for? Oh, I read a book. I finished a book today. I'm like, oh, yes. They're doing it on their own. They learn that they start to learn. Establish a budget. So now this is where it kind of started with us, and really where Knowledge Pay began. Oh, also I forgot to grab these. If you're part of Dave Ramsey's program, what we like to encourage as well is to give, save, and spend. So the envelopes that he basically teaches all the time: give, save, and spend. They're giving their tithe, so you're teaching them the value of giving. They're learning how to save through this. How else are they going to make money to understand? And think about it also. If they're part of the function of the family, we're blessed enough where Megan can stay at home. And because she's not out earning an income, does that mean she should not get some of the income that I bring in through working? Of course she should. Same thing if your kids are part of the function of the family. If they are doing the things that they're supposed to do, if they're vacuuming, they're cleaning. I mean, we have a whole schedule laid out for them. Like on Tuesday, Brady has to do this, Sarah has to do this, Emily has to do this. It's all part of the function of the family. And that's really where the money kind of comes into, is the daily responsibilities. And then when they go above and beyond through the fuel targets, then boom, we add that in. And then we teach them the value of money. So how do we get to building this into our budget? We go to one of the fuels, the physical fuel. Who likes cereal in here? Everybody likes cereal. I love cereal. We don't have it at our house at all. When my mom comes in town, she likes to spoil the kids with it. But what we did in Egypt instead, so we took that out of the budget. We took junk food out of the budget. Do you see where I'm getting with this? So as you start to take these things that are really not necessary, you realize that you have a little bit here. And then you can recirculate it to your kids. So they're part of the function of the family. They're getting things by accomplishing great things. You take away the junk food, they're getting physically better. Now they're seeking these fuel targets. They're learning, they're educating themselves. They're doing it on their own because they've got a goal in mind. The first week I remember that we did this, we took them to we were in Egypt, we took them to the commissary. And they had earned, because we paid them $1 a day for their daily responsibilities. So if they accomplish everything, they have to accomplish everything without us telling them to do them. So we'll get into the rules here in a minute. But if they're able to accomplish it, they come with an integrity system, and they come in and they put their popsicle stick in. Boom, there's $1. So typically at the end of the week, there's usually $5 to $7. Usually on the weekends, they start to slack off a little bit, right? Because we're doing this, we're doing that, or they go and hang out with their friends, so they can't really accomplish everything. So at the end of that first week, like, you have to give, so you have to put 10% in for tithe. You have to save 10%, so I'm teaching them to give, to save. You can spend it on whatever you want. Not on anything I want? I'm like, yes. And what came out of that was, okay, I'm going to get my own box of cereal. Yes, I'll write your name on it. I promise you I won't touch it. I'll try really hard not to. But I won't touch your box of cereal. And they get to the store, and this is where the value of money comes in. And they see I made like $5, $6, $7 that week. And they look at a box of cereal, and it's like $3.54, $5. My favorite's that much. The first week, they all bought cereal. They all bought it. They're like, yeah, I'm just going to buy. Oh, can I get some ice cream? How much more money do I have left? And I mean, so they're learning to do all those functional things with money. And so that was an educational point. They're going to make bad decisions early on. You want to get rid of those bad decisions early on. And so over the next few weeks, they started earning money. We're encouraging them because they don't really understand the concept. We're teaching them. We're teaching them. And they go to the store and like, I don't really want to buy that anymore. They start seeing bigger and better things. Ooh, I see an iPod, or I see this. And now they're starting to understand the value of money. Oh, wow, that's like $150. How long is it going to take me to get that? They start thinking about how they can save. Now they're thinking, what can I do to earn extra money? Yes. Guess what? I have a whole list for you. Right? So you can start to see where the functionality of the system starts to work. They're learning the value of money. It's not going to cost you any extra in your budget. You do the right thing. You take out the junk. You add it to things that are of value to your children, and then it just circles right back in. They're learning to tie. Oh, it's so powerful. When I think of it, I get excited just because I'm like, oh man, I want to come home. I want to see that jar. It doesn't matter how much it's going to cost me. If my kids are growing, that's so much more powerful than anything else. So budget, don't think of it as having to have more. Think of it as, what can I cut out? What can I use internally to help my children grow? List the roles and make visible. So you can kind of see on the bottom right-hand side of the paper, knowledge pay roles. It's the integrity system. The integrity system. It's in effect until your child chooses to be, untrustworthy. We haven't really had any issues with that. Sometimes like, hey, I didn't see you exercise this morning. Oh yeah, I'm on it, Dad. And then I'm like, yeah, you better watch yourself. Make sure that what they do is they'll go over to our counter and they'll see their schedule. Okay, I did that. They're eager to accomplish things. I love it. So integrity system. 2, automatic deductions. We talked about that a second ago. Daily responsibilities, they must be on track to complete them. So that's kind of when you want to put them in a time order. It doesn't necessarily have to follow it. You don't have to have specific times, but you'll want to put them in order for how you want them to accomplish. So they must be on track before the knowledge pay, which is the fuel targets, can be paid. So if they want to spend extra time playing their instrument, have at it, buddy. Right? Point 4, you will be paid every Friday. They start to understand, like, what is it about a job? Okay, so I'm going to accomplish all these things. They see the growth. They start to get excited for Friday. Ooh, how much did I get? What did I do? And, it kind of makes it exciting. But make sure this is something for the parents. Make sure that you're paying them accordingly and on time, showing them a good example. Point 5, you will be paid $1 for the daily responsibilities, and they all must be completed. If they don't accomplish everything that's inside the daily responsibilities, they don't get that $1 for the day. Knowledge pay, you can kind of see the money. So we have each of the different ones. So we show this to the kids so they know how much the value. We also write it on there. It's just more of a visual thing. You can adjust yours however, depending on what you want your budget to be, is really the unique thing about it. And then 7, as alluded to earlier, spend money on anything you choose to, but we want to teach them to spend wisely. All right, so that's pretty much the foundation of what knowledge pay really is building a system, creating the structure based off of the daily responsibilities, and then also building the list of their fuel targets. So then we have the climb, which is the next slide. I think I skipped a couple. Okay, yeah. Teach, lead, and communicate success. So at that point, through the process, what we want to do is it's going to be difficult at first. But once you set whatever system you so choose, once you set that in place, it's going to take them a little bit to start to understand it. And you're going to have to kind of go through it. And then it's going to take a while, but it'll work in the end. You'll see the fruits of your labor. And H, of course, pray for God to bless your home. It's very important. Be sure to pray for your family. And whatever you decide to do, I encourage you to pray that you'll stick to it. And that's really the thing that'll happen. That's why this next point is called the climb. The climb, there's going to be those initial challenges. You are going to have to set the example. If you put on the daily responsibilities to get up and read your Bible and exercise, what must you do? Get up. You must set the example. Or I enjoy working out with my kids. If you get the opportunity, do that. It's fun. Little Charlotte, it's 3. You saw her on the stage this morning. Watching her do sit-ups and try to do push-ups is so much fun. It is so much fun. But they see but even the younger ones start to see the older ones, and they're like, oh, I want to participate in that. And it just builds and it builds and it builds. And develop their financial IQ is part of it. It's to help them to understand the value of it. There was a mom I was talking to the other day. She was just like, how do you get your kids to understand the value of money? They ask me, can I go to Jamba Juice? Can I get this? Can I get that? They're always asking because they don't understand the value of money. And what's even more exciting is when they find that new pair of shoes that they want, save up for it. You don't necessarily have to buy them things. So instead of buying them new clothes and buying them all those things, utilize that inside the money that they're earning to encourage them to save up to buy those things. Point 4. So there's going to be a climb in the beginning, but after it starts running, it goes so much smoother. And then point 4, the change. I call this, like Dave Ramsey calls it, the debt snowball. I call this the fruit snowball. The fruits of their labor, the fruits of your labor will compound, will continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. And before you know it, they're doing all these things. You see the list here. Following a schedule on their own, reading their Bible and praying quietly in the morning, completing responsibilities without being asked, desiring educational opportunities because they have goals in mind, increasing physical fitness levels and setting goals, preparing for the mental challenges of the day, seeking opportunities to earn income and understanding the value of money and properly stewarding. So I want to charge you, parents. It's up to you to set the example. It's up to you. When you go home tonight, you don't necessarily have to follow this, but do something. Please do something. If you want your family to grow into, I've worked with so many young Marines going from all different states, some live in the city, some growing on farms that hardly knew anybody. And then they come and they're all together and you get to learn so many unique things about them. And so many of them lacked a father and lacked a mother. They didn't have that influence. And guess what? You get to. You have the choice to. God really requires it of you, but he gives you the choice through free will. But I encourage you, I want to charge you to do something. Find a way to encourage your family to grow. In conclusion, and I'll be around for questions afterwards, but I just want to encourage all of you to if we're really going to grow our church, if we're going to better our families, if we're really going to do the right thing, we have to do something. Remember, structure brings freedom. And if there is no structure, we'll run into so many other issues. Let's pray. Dear God, I thank you for this opportunity, Lord. Thank you for my family. And Lord, as you know, we're far from perfect, Lord. But Lord, I pray just help us to grow stronger. Help us to be an example. We love you, Lord. Lord, my heart's desire for tonight was to encourage, to uplift, to help the families in here with just something to give them to strive towards. Lord, ultimately, you're the one that we should all seek. You expect so much from us. And Lord, a lot of times we fail. Lord, I just pray that you'll just help us to see the big picture, see how much you need us, how much you need of our families, Lord. The precious children that you've given to us, you put under our care, Lord. Help us to be the example that we should be. Lord, I can't thank you enough for the many blessings. Pray that you just continue to bless our church. Help us to be a huge influence in our community. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Kevin, a round of applause, guys. Stay right here, Kevin. Stay right here. I want to do something here to shake this up a little bit. Let me get somebody to move this pulpit, somebody else to move this chair here, that chair here. Brother Kevin, we're going to ask you a few questions. And if you're in music and you're like, well, I want to play, just relax. Just be patient. It's part of life, okay? You always got to make adjustments for whatever's best for everybody. I think we could tap into some of this in here. And whether you're a parent or not a parent, that doesn't matter. And if you think, well, I'll never do that system, you completely missed the value of this communication. There's an incredible amount of value that was just dispensed. And I hope that it didn't go right over your head. Whether you have kids or don't have kids, the idea of structure is so very important. And so I want to just take a moment here to dive into some of this. You have your mic on there. As you're out there right now and you're kind of thinking through some of this, what kind of questions do you have in your mind that you're like, okay, what about this? What about that? And so I want to take a moment here just to have some question and answers session. So who's got a question out there on anything that was brought up? I don't care what it is for Kevin or myself. I want to just take a moment here and to be able to dive into some of this. Oh, yes, Miss Gina.
Yes.
Do you pay them in cash every week? The answer is yes. On Fridays.
On Fridays, yes.
So they love Fridays.
They love Fridays.
Does everybody like getting paid? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. What else? Other questions? Yeah, Andrea.
When like you have weeks, like let's say for NDT, for instance, and the kids are out or gone or have extracurriculars or things that the family's doing throughout the week, do you guys still stick to these daily things, even though like the free time and sometimes the house cleanup doesn't work out every single day? Do you have flexibility in that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's ultimately your system. You can adjust it, you can change it. I'm just kind of throwing into, giving you what we do. And yes, there are times when there's church activities, there's this, there's that kind of pulls it away. It's the spirit of what's happening with the daily responsibilities, and that's really what I want to encourage them, is to not necessarily just worry about what's happening throughout the day, but I don't want them just to sit around and not do anything, not to just sit around and want to, not just sit around and want to play games and do all this thing. I want, me personally, I ask myself this question: was it profitable? Was what I just did, is it profitable, the thing that I'm about to do? And I try to train my kids to think the same way. Is the things that I'm doing, are they of value to myself or value to others?
So to answer her question, you make adjustments according to the overall schedule. And does that answer your question?
Yeah. I guess my question is like with the pay. I know like some kids would be really encouraged with the pay system, but like say they weren't able to because of the family schedule a day, do all their daily responsibilities. Do they not get $1 for that day because?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you adjust it if you know that things are happening and they can't, say vacuum, or they can't sweep up, or they can't help with the dishes because we ate out. And then obviously you just, it's all in the spirit of what you're trying to accomplish through the day.
So you make adjustments according to what's best for the family.
Yes.
And the overall big picture, and they don't lose out on following the big picture when the leader makes an adjustment to the home.
Yes. It's all about the function of the family. I mean, that's really what it is. I want them to be part of it, not just be there and I have to tell them what to do all the time. I want them to run on autopilot. They know exactly what they have to do. I shouldn't have to ask them to vacuum. I shouldn't have to ask them to help clean up. I shouldn't have to ask them. And if I'm having to do that, then I know that there's an issue there. And so really the daily responsibilities is pretty much a schedule to help. It's like a checklist for them to go through. Oh, did I do this? Did I do that? So if we go out to eat, then of course they're not going to clean up after dinner. So then we forgo that. But it's really all about the spirit. And in the end, it's up to you as the individual parent to decide on how you want to. Did they really earn it for the day?
I like what you're saying. It's about the overall function of the family. So when the family has something else going on, they don't lose because the whole system's built upon the function of the family. But when the family doesn't have something else it's doing, then they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing without being told.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Other questions or thoughts?
A lot of the times too, like Andre, if we know we're going to be gone in the morning, then they have gotten up earlier so that they can read their Bible and do that, the initial stuff, and then we go and do the activity or whatever we're doing, and then they come home and they try to pick up where they left off. So some of the stuff, like he was saying, when you go out to eat, you don't do the dishes, obviously, but they can come home and they still try to vacuum, where they're like, oh, what else do I have to do today? Okay, I did it, you know. So they just try to fit it in where they can. And if if we don't get to it because of the activity, then
That's phenomenal. What I like about that is it teaches the kids, like, life happens and there's opportunities, but when you accept a new opportunity to go out, you don't, like, it is going to require you to come back and do your normal daily routines, whether it's you do them before you leave or you do them after you leave. The whole system doesn't shut down just because there's some other opportunity. You just have to get better when there's greater opportunities. Okay, other questions or anything in there? Yeah.
Do you, if they're kids, right, and they fight and all that, do you take some of that money?
Do your kids fight at all, Brother Parker? I mean, I didn't know. Go ahead, brother.
Do you do some of their savings or their spending money?
No, no, because they earn it and they're gonna stuff like that. I get frustrated. I do all those things as well, so I can't really fault them. I'm still gonna get paid for the labor that I do as well. So they're still earning it. So I don't really want to take money away from them. But if I have to tell them to accomplish things, then yes, they won't be able to get, say, like their DR, their daily responsibility for that day.
Excellent. Other questions? Yes, Tammy.
How was the daily responsibilities established? Is that something you as the leader of the home came up with, or is that something you guys collaborated together on?
Yes, it's very important. It's a good point, Tammy. Ms. Tammy. You have to have a united front. If both of the husband and wife or the mom or whatever your situation is, if they're not focused, they don't understand the roles, they're not really pushing the system, then it's going to collapse anyways. So both of you have to, be engaged, and you're looking at the best ways that you can develop your children. So, I mean, everything's going to come profitable out of it, whether you may miss an area. I mean, because our list has grown. We've added new things as they age. Different things changes. Originally, I think we were paying them like $1 to write 200 words. Now that Brady's older, you can do that in like 20 minutes. But when he was 6, it was some effort. And so we always adjusted things inside the schedules based off their age. But yes, we absolutely had a united front in order to know that, because if we didn't have a united front, then the kids aren't going to look to us as an example. And so we had to do those things in order for them to want to do them as well.
I'll piggyback on her question. How do you maintain a united front?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. When we first sat down to do this, he listed out all the stuff that he wanted to do, and I told him, I was like, Kevin, honestly, this is not gonna. They can't do this. Like, it's too much. It's and so there was a little bit of we wanted to create the schedule. I felt like, ooh, it's a little too much, but obviously submitted to what he wanted me to, and I pushed them and told them this is what we got to do. Dad set the schedule, and they could do it, and they've actually gone over what I thought they could do. But yeah, I had to.
So you learned to yield now. But when I say how, like, how do you guys communicate and talk? Are you wanting to switch me, or are you wanting to give him?
Get some mics for people.
Oh, okay. Oh, people online are like, what are the questions? So is it like, how do you guys communicate with each other to make sure that both of you are on the same page? is it like a weekly meeting, or is it like a day-to-day connection to make sure? And then when you distribute the funds or bring about correction, how does that look? Because there's some families in here that I think could probably gain some help from that thought. What does that look like? Like, how do you guys talk together on that? Is it just, how does that work?
Well, we saw the fruits of what came out of the children by, I mean, ultimately it's just us knowing each other and by us setting a stand. Because, I mean, in the long run, it's us trying to help our children. And so if we're both united in wanting to help our children, no matter if one of us agrees with this or not, in Megan's example, if you really calculate the amount of time that they're spending doing things, it's very minimal. I mean, how long does it take to do each of those little things?
So I think I'm gonna actually pull this out of you.
Yes, I think you need to.
We do talk about it.
Yeah, how does that work?
Regularly. We don't have a set time that we sit down.
That's okay. Yeah,
but
is it like daily, or is it weekly, or just whenever there's a?
When he comes home, like, how did the kids do today?
Ah, okay.
Did they do this? You know, did they have? You know, what did they? How much time did they spend here? Or we discuss it probably daily.
Okay, so did that help? So it's an everyday touch between the leaders to make sure that they're on the same page. That helps us because in any system, if you don't understand how the system works, you might put it out but not really understand how to work it. So that's a big help.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Other questions? This is good for us. Yeah, Gene.
So if you start a system like this, when they start complaining, whining, having their attitudes, what do you do? Brother Daniel wants me to say it again. So when they start complaining and whining and crying and everything because you want them to do productive stuff, how do you deal with it?
My approach to it is I add more on, and they wish they would have just done what I already originally asked them. That's just my thought on it. So a lot of times, initially, that's a point in chapter 3 in the book. I write up about the climb, and you start to understand the system and the functionality of it, but over time, as you implement it, the kids are going to resist. Like, I got to do this, I got to do that. But realistically, you really start to calculate the amount of time that they're spending doing other things. They can accomplish. I mean, to me, that schedule's weak. I'm wanting that jar to be full and encouraging that, to be. I want to pay them so much money and to show that, hey, it pays to be educated. It pays to have effort. It pays to focus and refocus and use that energy in different areas.
Well, the daily responsibilities too are required of them. Even if they complain or if we have to tell them to do it and they lose their DR stick, they still have to do them. So if they're whining and complaining, they're going to lose that $1. So we tell them, if you're going to complain, you're going to still do it. Mm-hmm. We're just not going to pay you. So they've learned that if they complain, they lose their $1. So
it's like,
and then they still have to do it.
And they still have to do it.
So it's like in heaven, like you lose your reward. You still have to do it, but you lose your reward.
Yes.
And part of it too is we've told them if they complete their DRs, then they get paid for the extra activities like checkers or whatever they decide to do. If they lose their DR stick, they don't get the money for the extra activities either.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll just pass the mic around. I like this setup better with you guys right there. Okay, so other questions. Like, this is the time to really pull out information and maybe something that's in your mind. Is there awesome. Do we have a mic back there? Okay, go ahead.
So you have older kids, but you also have younger kids. When do you start incorporating this? Like, does Charlotte do little things to earn money, or is she not at that stage?
Not
like,
yet.
when do you start?
We started Emily when she was probably
4 to 5. Yeah.
And we assigned her tasks that were, on Tuesdays, like the kids cleaned the bathroom, and she was in charge of taking out the trash in the bathroom. And that's still one of her jobs, is to take out the trash. So you kind of assign them age-appropriate tasks. Another good one.
Do you have age-appropriate tasks for like Charlotte? Like, do you?
Not yet. She just joins in. For a few minutes.
We had they spend time drawing or coloring. That's I took a lot of those out just to fit on the page. I mean, you can add as many things as you want. So age appropriate stuff is just whatever, that how she can be part, how they can be part of the function of the family. So if it's just helping, wipe things down or pushing in the tables or setting out the forks and the spoons. I mean, you can come with all kinds of setting the table. There's no limit to the things that you can do is really what's unique about it. It's however you think that they can develop the most.
Or the idea of like everybody helps within the family too. So she might not be old enough to, read a book, but she's old enough to, like you said, set the table. Or I used to like to give Emily, she used to love Cinderella, so when she was little tiny, she would like take a towel and she'd clean the floor and she'd sing how did it go, Emily? That Nightingale song, I don't know, she'd sing, and I used to let her do the baseboards because that was easy, plus I didn't want to do it, so I let her do it, and she loved it. So it's like, giving them little things that they can do to participate in the function of the family. She doesn't have a jar yet, no, but
she's almost there.
She's starting to do the workouts. She likes to run the laps with the kids, and she likes to try to do push-ups, so she's almost there, but...
It's phenomenal. Other questions? This is so great. Yes, I'll bring the mic to you. You got it, Daniel? Okay. Yeah, this is great. Embrace it.
I liked it better with no microphone.
You love the mic.
So, what would your suggestion be to introduce this? Don't get me wrong, there is stuff to do at my house all day, every day. But how would you introduce this to their heart so that they wouldn't feel like it's constant, like your daily responsibilities are because you want to serve and because we're a family and this is out of love and not out of a place of punishment, and we have to do this to earn money. So how would you introduce that from a place of love?
If mom's having to do everything, then there's a problem, and it kind of I show it as that I think of it as the children should want to show love to their parents, show honor and respect. So if mom is cleaning up after me or mom's having to do this, it's almost like going to work and you have the boss. I always had the mentality is I always wanted to learn my boss's job, and I wanted to figure out how I can do it better and more efficient. And so by doing that, I wanted to take as much responsibility away from the boss as I possibly can. And so by doing that, it relieved him or her of all these different things that you have to do. Same thing goes with inside the home. Mom's having to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this. For example, we had a bunch of weeds growing in the back from all the rain. So I encouraged the children. I could have told them as dad to do it, to go out and, hey, pull all the weeds. But they understood that it's part of the function of the family, keeping the house clean, making things look nice. What does it represent? How does it represent our family? But mostly showing them that, hey, you're doing things out of a servant's heart to serve others. And the payoff of it is, the pay's there, but even if you didn't do it without pay, it should still be their desire to want to help to serve you and to encourage you as well, Mom.
I think too, when we lived in Latvia, Brady did something, I can't even pinpoint what it was, but he made the assumption that I made the mess, but that's mom's job. Mom's here to clean that up. And he was only like, 6 or 7. He wasn't, and I don't even think he meant for it to sound disrespectful or mean to me. But Kevin was like, whoa, why is that mom's job? Well, that's mom's job. She cleans up. She does this, she does that. And he's, no. It's not mom's job. That's your job. You made the mess. And it's the same thing with your bed. Like, you made the bed. You made the mess in the bed. You make it. And so just trying to teach them that mom isn't a servant in this house. Like, she's not here to clean up after you. And you shouldn't want her to. Like, that's your mess. You made it. So.
She's got some power in her, huh?
That was what it was. He and Kevin looked at him and said, "Are you serious? You think mom is here to, to pick up after you? Why?"
All right, another question. No, there's people listening online, and we want to be servants.
Hi, guys online. I really don't need a mic, but you're not here.
All right, let's take the mic from her. Go ahead and ask your question.
No, just along the lines of Gina was saying is there a way to get them to do these things without bribing them. I think that's the way I interpret it sort of sometimes. And, you know, my kids, they got allowances age appropriate. But whenever I said, well, you know, you should do this and you should do that kind of things, suggestions, strong suggestions. You know, they said, well, why? And I said, well, when you move out and you're on your own, you don't want me to come live with you or visit you and have to clean up your house, do you? Or cook your meals, because there are some things that once you get of age and you want to be on your own, that you're going to need to do.
So what's your question?
You know, kind of institute, kind of like what they're doing is practicing to be an adult on their own, because these are things they're going to not have somebody else.
Back to your
there
question.
do with them.
Your question is,
Yes,
what's your question? Is it bribery?
Well,
How do you
yes,
set this
what
up to where it
was
doesn't
that,
feel
you
like
know,
bribery?
that,
I'm trying to focus
I
you
know
just a little bit.
We used to have that allowance system where, you know, instead of the daily routines, you had to do these things for allowance. So it sounds
I
like
think it's the same
like
thing.
allowance plus bonuses.
Well, it's the same thing. We got asked. Well, the kids in Egypt all had allowances, and our kids didn't. And so they're like, "How come we don't get?" And we even talked about it. He and I did about, well, why should we pay you to clean up around the house? Like that, you should do that as to help the family function better. So then we kind of said, okay, so how do? But at first, it is going to be bribery. At first, it is like, okay, if you do this, I'll pay you. If you do this, I'll pay you. But as it goes and you keep doing it, it almost, it's not money. It is a little bit money driven, but they just start doing it, and they actually come up with fun things to do, and they forget that they're getting paid for those things. Like they will forget that they played Cashville the other day, and that was an educational game, but they didn't put money in the jar. They could have gotten money for it, but they just, you know what I mean? They just kind of start doing things, and they become creative, and they start.
You want to encourage them to do it. So whether the pay is there or not doesn't really matter. It's an incentive. That's why I go to work, is so I can get paid. It's the same concept where I want to encourage them to push themselves in better air, to make better choices. We're left to ourselves, we're going to make the wrong choice unless we have an incentive. Obviously, coming to church, serving the Lord is our incentive. It's to serve. And God rewards us for that, whether it's monetary or whether it's through, you know, just so many different blessings, meeting new people, being able to help serve others. So there's always there's always rewards. God gives us rewards for us doing good things, not necessarily that we deserve it, but yet that He just wants to bless us. And the same thing with your children.
Yeah, it's good. Other questions? Yeah, right back here, right behind you, Daniel. Susan?
What about having taxes in the system? Because you have save, you have give, and maybe a tax. Because when we get older, we have to go and we work and we have to pay taxes before we can pay our bills and
Kevin
before we
used to
can
do
spend
that
it.
with the cereal. He usually will.
So usually, if they buy,
that's my tax.
so I make them pay taxes through it, when they go and buy something. Oh, let me try a bite of that. I haven't had a candy bar in a while.
We haven't implemented taxes into it, but that is a good point.
Well, what about, okay, because our taxes go to the common good for services, the streets, and all sorts of things. What about having tax as part of it, 10% or whatever, and then give that to a community organization, a food bank, something that services the community that would be kind of like a tax type thing, so they get used to budgeting in their mind for taxes?
Yeah, we do it. We had them give to missions for a while, where we were just looking at we want them to have a giving mentality. And when we think about taxes, it's more of a, I don't even, who wants to, but it's mostly, I mean, that's something that we could implement as they get older. I mean, they're 13 and younger, they can't see it. And we talk about taxes and things like that, but at this point, at a young age, is it really that relevant yet? Not really, but when they're 16 and they're wanting to go work a job and they're going to get their W-2s they're going to quickly see, man, there's a lot coming out of it. So,
amen. Well, let's give Kevin and Megan a round of applause. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I hope that this lesson tonight was a great help to each and every one of you. I did take a little extra time for this because I felt it was important. Sometimes you get to hear a speaker speak, but it's a whole nother when they peel back the curtain and you can find out how exactly do they operate Of course, they're members of our church, so you can feel free to, go up and ask them questions. He does have a unique military background, and you can hear that in some of his illustrations, and that's a great help. It serves him very well. I can tell you, I wish that I heard this when I was younger. I wish I would have had a family structure like that you guys have. And quite honestly, the work that you're doing with your family is phenomenal. And the incentives, you don't have to do that. It's not bribery. It's just simply teaching biblical principles. And God does reward work. And so I very much appreciate this outline, all the effort that you put into this. I did write down several nuggets. Did y'all write down some ideas? Yeah, I think it was a great help. I really enjoyed what am I looking for in a future son-in-law and a daughter-in-law. I wrote down those attributes, and I like the idea that, high standards are for you. And I also put down, you get what you are, not what you want. You get what you are. So if you want something, then you must become that by daily discipline and choosing to exemplify that in your movements and who you are as a person. And so love the example that you guys are providing to your family and to our church family. Was this a wonderful help for you all tonight? Let's give them another round of applause. Excellent.